Hey guys, I'm Celeste here from Hexen Arcane. Thanks for tuning in today. I wanted to talk about another true crime case. If you haven't figured out by now, true crime is one of my passions because I'm interested in also there's a lot of cases that are still unsolved, and I think that if the right people see it, they could be solved. And it's one of those things that I love, seeing these cold cases get solved. Like someone comes forward, new evidence is found, forensics, and suddenly there's answers where there were none before. I want to start this case by saying that there is this huge issue that there's not enough attention given to missing and murdered Indigenous women. It's an issue I'd heard about. People have mentioned that before. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm sure there is. And then I started looking into it and I was blown away at how many Indigenous people, especially women, are missing or murdered, and there's no attention given to these cases in the media or anywhere. It's so many people I had never heard about, and it really got to me. So even though Indigenous women vanish or are killed at a higher proportion than some other ethnic groups, the cases just don't receive the same media attention and publicity. Sometimes that publicity is what is really needed to get leads and answers in the case. Being able to tell the story of these women, spread the information and photos can produce leads, jog a memory, or get someone to come forward with information and help these women not be forgotten. So I think it's really important to tell those stories and share those photos, even though there's often very little information available on the cases. Before I get into the case itself, this is how serious it is. According to the Coalition to Stop Violence Against Native Women, 4 out of 5 Native women experience some form of violence in their lifetime. Native women face murder rates more than 10 times the national average, and homicide is the 3rd leading cause of death among Native girls and women aged 10 to 24, and the 5th leading cause of death for Native women aged 25 to 34. Unfortunately, there's no real database that tracks these statistics, so it's probably way worse than even reported. Today I want to talk about one of those Indigenous women, her story, Rosenda Strong. Yakima County is a reservation in Washington state that has been the site of dozens of disappearances and murders. Women, girls, men, and boys have all vanished mysteriously or died on and around that 1.3 million acre Yakima reservation, spanning decades to recent times. So these cases have gone back for years and years. Many of these cases are still unsolved. Rosenda is one of the women, and this is her story. At the time of her disappearance, Rosenda was a 31-year-old mother to 4 kids, 2 boys and 2 girls, when she went missing on October 2nd, 2018. She was a member of the Confederated Tribes of the mmip, and I'm so sorry if I say this wrong, Indian Reservation, which is the tribe her mother was part of in Oregon, but she lived on Yakima. She was described as being very outgoing and someone who loved to laugh. She grew up following her big sister Sissy around everywhere and loved to play outside, catching tadpoles and frogs. She was known to love animals and was a total mama's girl. She really loved her mom. When people describe her, they mention that people knew her for her unique laugh. Unfortunately, in the home they grew up in, they were exposed to alcohol abuse and violence at times, but her sister said that they looked out for each other and were there for each other. There was a time when Rosenda was removed from the home by CPS for a few years. A car just pulled up and took her because she wandered off, and that memory stayed with her sister Sissy, and she saw how hard her mom fought to get Rosenda back, although it took 4 years. But during that time, she'd just run away or try to get back to her family all the time. As she grew up, Rosenda got pregnant at a young age, but she was described as being a great mom who made her kids a priority all the time. She really looked out for her family and those around her in her friend circle. But she also unfortunately struggled with drug addiction. She lived with her sister Sissy Reyes at the time she disappeared. On the night that she disappeared, she got a ride with an acquaintance to the Legends Casino in Toppenish in an older model Nissan. Rosenda was last seen leaving the casino with a man. When she left that night, she was not reported being seen again. Her sister reported her missing, and because of her history of drug abuse, it was initially dismissed by the police, and they told her that her sister would turn up and she was probably just out partying. The police were familiar with Rosenda and her record, and they didn't take Sissy's concerns very seriously. At the time, even though Sissy says that everything about the situation was very out of character for her sister, like not coming home, and leaving her kids there, not answering her phone or picking up the calls from her sister. With the police deciding not to even look in on the place Sissy thought her sister might be, she had no choice but to wait for her to show up. But Rosenda did not come home. Now this is where it gets a bit confusing for me. Sissy has stated that a man reached out to Rosenda's older sister from her father's side, and the sister reached out to Sissy. According to him, he was present when someone or some people were shooting at Rosenda or shot her, and he was afraid that he would be targeted as well if he did not immediately leave. He said they were treating it as a game or making a game out of it. Over the next few months, more people messaged or texted Sissy telling her similar things and to look in an upright freezer or fridge or of some kind for her sister. Sissy said that none of these people were hanging out in the same circle, like they were not in the same friends group, which made the information seem more credible. So she was hearing this from multiple sources who wouldn't really necessarily know each other or talk to each other. 9 long months would pass, and Rosenda wasn't found until July 4th, 2019, when her remains were found in an abandoned and unplugged freezer outside of Toppenish. She was found by 2 homeless men, and her remains were able to be identified through dental records on July 12th. The freezer was found on the 64,000 block of U.S. Highway 97 on the Yakima Reservation. After an examination, her body was finally released on September 2nd to her family for burial. Since her death, Rosenda's sister has been her biggest advocate and continues to try to get answers and justice for her sister. She has organized a march in her sister's honor and keeps pushing for exposure and answers in this case. They had a really special bond, and Sissy said that she could feel her sister's energy and that special connection between them. She said she could feel the loss of that connection after October 3rd, and she just knew that her sister was dead. That is so heartbreaking. If the police had followed up right away, they may have been able to find more information or catch someone before her body was disposed of in the freezer, or maybe even prevent her death. Who knows? But what we do know is that someone knows something about Rosenda and her death. There is someone who is responsible for her death. People may have seen her after she left the casino that night. Whoever killed her may have told others. It seems like a lot of people have a pretty good idea of what happened to her. Why hasn't anyone been arrested? I'm not sure why these people haven't been questioned, or if they have and they have been named, why hasn't anything happened? I'm so confused by this. I would love to find out what the police know and if they're actively pursuing leads in this case. And if not, why not? And why are they not talking to these people that seem to know what happened? So please share her story and her picture to get justice for this woman. She deserves to get justice, and the more people that know her name and see her picture, the more likely it is that someone will have information and come forward. Anything could help solve this case. She was very loved and cared for person who was taken away from her family and her children very tragically. She was found basically in a trash pile a few miles from her house, and she deserved better than that. If you have any information about Rosenda Strong or this case, please call the Yakima Nation Police Department at 509-865-2933 or the FBI at 509-990-0867 regarding case number 18-001 010803. Thank you, and I hope that in my lifetime soon this can be solved and her killers are brought to justice and her sister can get some peace in this, because she's been doing so much in her sister's name, and I think it's so tragic what happened and that it wasn't taken seriously. And sadly, this is just one story of an Indigenous woman who's been killed or went missing, and whose picture and story should be out there and their story should be told.